We all remember what happened on January 6th. A violent mob of Donald Trump supporters stormed the Capitol. They breached barricades, assaulted police officers, vandalized property. Lawmakers went into hiding, fearing for their lives, and rioters chanted, "Hang Mike Pence," during the hours-long attack. But legacy-obsessed President Trump seems intent on erasing the stain of that day and reprogramming our memories of it. This week, the Justice Department moved to drop convictions of 12 members of two far-right extremist groups, the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers militia, after they were found guilty years ago of charges in connection with the attack on the Capitol. Most of them were convicted of seditious conspiracy. In a statement, ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, Jamie Raskin, wrote, "This is an insult to the jurors who heard the evidence and did their civic duty, to the judges who presided over these cases and sentenced these criminals, and above all to the heroic officers who were wounded, bloodied, and broken defending our democracy on that terrible day." Joining us now is Michael Fanone, former D.C. police officer who defended the Capitol on January 6th. Michael, it's good to have you back on the show. You lived through it. You know the truth of January 6th. What is it like to see this president? And he began this rewriting of the story, of the history, on day one of this term. But to see it get to this point, what is that like for you?
Listen, it's no surprise. Donald Trump announced the same day he announced his candidacy for re-election that he was going to pardon on the first day he held office. He was going to pardon everybody that was involved in the January 6th insurrection. And so this shouldn't come as a surprise to his supporters or to anyone that voted for him. And quite frankly, I don't think it is. I think that the vast majority of Americans that supported Donald Trump supported these pardons. And so here you are. But there are consequences to this. This is Donald Trump spitting in the face of the rule of law. Donald Trump and his administration spitting in the face of law enforcement, not just the officers that fought to defend the Capitol on January 6th, but every FBI agent that subsequently did their job, investigated those crimes to hold these individuals accountable. Every U.S. attorney, assistant U.S. attorney who was involved in the investigations and prosecution of these individuals, as well as the American citizens that sat as jurors, the judges, the entire system itself. There is no rule of law in this country anymore. There is no justice system anymore in this country. There are those that support this administration who seem to escape or avoid any type of criminal culpability. And there are those who are aggressively pursued and prosecuted by the administration because they don't agree with the administration.
So, Michael, here's what gets me. When this happened on day one, Donald Trump pardons around 1,500 January 6ers, but he does not pardon 14 individuals, the leaders of the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, who were charged on seditious conspiracy. They get their sentences commuted. And why 15 months later, what changed that Donald Trump now they're going to vacate the sentences for 12 of the 14?
Yeah, listen, I can't pretend to understand if there's any, strategy to this, or if it was, the optics of pardoning individuals that were convicted by a jury in a court of law for seditious conspiracy. I have no idea. But I know that these individuals are traitors to this country, and that they are now or have been absolved of their criminal culpability in that seditious conspiracy. And that makes every American less safe. I think that should be the focal point of this whole story, is the fact that pardoning these people sends a message that if you commit crimes of violence, even as high a crime as seditious conspiracy on behalf of Donald Trump and the MAGA administration that he rules, that you will be absolved of your criminal culpability. And so, again, as I've said many, many times before, no one American in the history of this country has done more to normalize political violence than Donald Trump.
Michael, you wrote a Substack post recently about Hungary's ability to oust Viktor Orban and the lessons that that event may hold for other countries that are struggling with an authoritarian leader. Could you talk a little bit about your conclusions?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it took them, more than a dozen years to oust Viktor Orban. I don't want to wait a dozen years here in America to get rid of Donald Trump and this administration. I mean, fortunately, I don't think Donald Trump has 12 or 16 years left of his life. But still, I'd like to say that it gives me some degree of hope in seeing that, that they were eventually able to oust that authoritarian regime. But I don't see that at this moment, here in America. I don't see a willingness to be uncomfortable, with the average American and do what it takes to oust not just Donald Trump, but his whole MAGA far-right administration.
All right, Michael Fanone, thank you so much.